Zoological Society of London says factors such as climate change, overfishing and habitat loss are to blame. It's called on the government to stop the decline. Well, let's talk to Dr. Richard Unsworth. He's a seagrass marine expert and joins us from Magor in Wales. What have we done to our oceans?
Well, the report that's come out from Zoological Society of London is really showing that our oceans are not just being damaged in one place or in one habitat, but the whole food web of our oceans is actually declining at a really rapid rate. And that's really quite worrying because we've got a rapidly growing human population on the planet that increasingly needs the resources from the oceans. And unless we actually learn to manage those oceans effectively, we're not going to be able to provide the raw resources, the food that people of the planet actually need from the ocean.
So it's going to have a direct effect, as you say, on communities, fishing communities, for example, communities that depend on the sea. But what about the knock-on effect to the rest of the world's ecosystem? If we lose marine life, how does that affect the rest of the world's ecology?
That's a huge effect on the ecology, because if you take out, such as there's a lot of evidence that's showing how we're losing the top predators in the system, the sharks, for instance, and some of the large fish communities, and that actually has like a cascade impact upon the habitats at the lower level of the system. And it's those habitats that actually will support biodiversity as a whole and have benefits to the wider oceans. So, for instance, one of the key habitats that the report is focusing on is the loss of seagrass meadows around the world. And that's something that I'm actually seeing in my research. We work at a number of locations around the world, and wherever we go, we hear about seagrass loss. And the report is highlighting that potentially a third of the world's seagrasses have been documented to be lost. There's probably a lot more that actually have been lost, but we don't have all the specific data to describe that. So actually, by taking multiple levels of the food web out of the oceans, then we're damaging the whole kind of global ecosystem and our whole kind of ocean support system for human life.
So what do we need to stop doing immediately?
We really need to manage our fisheries effectively so they're sustainable. There's a lot of organisations that are working towards those aims, and there's a lot of certification that enables fisheries to be managed in a really sustainable fashion, and that really needs to happen urgently. And we have bycatch problems that's been highlighted in Europe recently. We've actually had some researchers recently working over in Sri Lanka showing how the very shrimps that we eat in Europe, the catching of them in Sri Lanka is resulting in huge bycatch, and that's catching fish and just literally throwing them back dead into the oceans. We also have problems of poor water quality that's damaging habitats. If you put more and more nutrients into the coastal seas, then it kind of results in a lot of algae growing in those coastal areas, and that suffocates other habitats. We also have problems from destructive fishing practices. We have problems from boats damaging coastal habitats. We also have an increasing problem of plastics and waste building up in the oceans.
Okay, it's all pretty gloomy stuff, isn't it? Dr. Richard Unsworth, seagrass expert, thanks very much for joining us from very windy Wales.
Thank you very much.
Now, Donald Trump has asked voters to join his move